It is an incredible statistic. 2/3 of adults in Northern Ireland are overweight. Many are turning to weight loss injections. Tonight we ask if they are the answer in the fight against obesity. Will they become a routine part of weight loss here, and what are the limitations? I'm Niall Donnelly. Welcome to Up Close. A very good evening. Obesity is costing the NHS billions of pounds. Now revolutionary weight loss drugs are widely available, but they can have a high price tag and may have some side effects for users. And what happens if you decide you want to come off them? We'll be asking these questions over the next hour, but before that I've been hearing firsthand from people using the medications. 30-year-old Nicole O'Neill has struggled with her weight since she was a child. Nicole really wants to shift the stones and pounds. That's why she started injecting a weight loss drug. At her heaviest, she was just over 19 stone.
It's been going amazing. I have no complaints. I've had the odd side effect, nothing too bad. And I have been on it now since February, so about 25 weeks. I've lost just under 4 stone. And the reason I started it was because I wanted to lose weight for my wedding. I tried other options and nothing had worked for me, and I thought, might as well give this a go.
Job one done. Whew.
I had tried multiple boot camps, multiple online coaching. I tried multiple diets. Nothing had worked. I'd stuck to them for a wee while and then just faded out of it. And I just thought, this is my last option, and I'd give it a try, and it's worked perfectly for me.
I have another £7 off, so that is a stone in 2 weeks, which I'm very happy about.
Nicole obtained her medicine online and had to provide many personal details backed up by images and her GP's details. Obesity in the UK is a huge problem. In Northern Ireland, 2/3 of adults are already classified as being overweight. The cost to the NHS nationally is astronomical, a whopping £6.5 billion a year. Here locally, that figure is 500 million. The Department of Health in London says obesity is the second biggest preventable cause of cancer. These data are disturbing, but might there be some light at the end of the tunnel for so many others like Nicole? Weight loss drugs can help significantly. They work by suppressing the appetite and signalling to the brain that you feel fuller so that you stop eating. It's what's known as getting rid of food noise, constantly thinking about when and what to eat next. GP surgeries in Northern Ireland cannot prescribe these medicines. They must be recommended by a consultant. However, they can also be obtained at a cost from some private doctors' clinics and pharmacies. Of course, they are widely available online.
So I'm just going to pop this to the top of your arm.
Yep. GP Donna Mace says not a day goes by in her surgery that someone does not inquire about weight loss medicines. She advises that anyone taking weight loss drugs should let their GP know.
To those people who are thinking about maybe ordering these drugs online, what would you say to them?
I say speak to your GP first, just to make sure that you're getting the right advice, that you're getting the right information, that you're getting that full care package of care, and that you're also going to the right providers, and that we know if you do start that it won't interfere with any of your medications, and that we can also monitor any long-term impacts in your health.
Since COVID, there has been a significant rise in the number of people from the northwest travelling abroad for many types of weight loss surgery. Often complications arise when they return home that need further medical attention. Dr. Mace says she understands how some overweight people want the quick fix and seek out alternative providers for weight loss medicines. Donna believes our local health service could be doing much more.
What would your message be to the Health Minister, Mike Hester?
Yeah. So Mike, please arrange and fund a well-supported weight loss programme for patients in Northern Ireland. We are suffering because other areas in the UK are getting access to weight loss support, and in Northern Ireland patients are seeking alternative providers and weight loss drugs, which may result in longer term complications and larger costs to the health service as a whole. We in general practice are well suited to provide the service if it was adequately funded. We do know that if you adequately fund general practice, we do reduce health inequalities and better outcomes for all in terms even of weight loss and health, cardiovascular risk and cancer risk.
The Health Minister was not available for interview, but back in May in a written statement, Mike Nesbitt told the Assembly that Phase 1 of a regional obesity management service would begin early next year. Mr Nesbitt said that where clinically appropriate, patients would have access to obesity medication as well as lifestyle support. Subject to funding, the Minister hopes the service can be expanded.
So I'm under no illusions of what I look like. I know what this feels. I look like a staffy that's been turned human by a genie. I know that. I know that, man. And what makes it worse is I've gained a lot of weight this year. That doesn't help how you look.
Before starting weight loss injections, the comedian William Thompson was almost always craving something to eat. And that something would normally not have been very healthy. Late night working did not help either. Since starting the medication, William has lost over 3 stone.
In my experience, you eat logically. You eat what will make you feel good because you're not craving anything. So you will go, well, then what will make me more energetic? What will make me feel full for the longest? Because greasy food and fried foods, they just upset your stomach. So you don't want them. Cravings for junk food and sugar and salt, that's gone. So I'm happy just with like a chicken salad. That will satiate my hunger. I'm definitely more active in the gym because you're seeing results of weight loss. You're more inspired to keep going at it. I'm definitely a lot more energetic now. My skin's a lot better because you have to drink a lot more water as a result because I think it can dehydrate you. I don't know the science. I just know you need to drink more water because you get dehydrated. So from doing that, my skin is improved. I'm sleeping better because I'm not having 2 burgers before I go to bed.
As well as taking the medication, William and Nicole have changed their lifestyle. But Dr Mace says what society here really needs is a total reset.
We're starting to see children presenting with obesity or weight problems as well. So there should be a change in our whole perception or our whole education about diet and exercise from our early years straight on through, and that support there perhaps from our general practitioners if the need arises. So we do need to change. We need to change that perception of where the quick fixes are and how to access those quick fixes and who would be the best people to help support to provide them to have a sustained impact on their weight and health care needs.
Dr Donna Mace ending that report. Well, back in October, the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, suggested people could take weight loss drugs to help get some people back to work. With me in the studio is Dr Frances O'Hagan, who's the chair of the Northern Ireland BMA Committee. And from Luton, I'm also joined by Dr Alan Ascari, a bariatric surgeon at Luton and Dunstable University Hospital. You're both very welcome. Frances, to start with yourself, what about those comments from Wes Streeting that weight loss drugs could get an element of the population back to work?
Yes, that could be true if they are targeted at the right people. This is about getting these drugs to the people who need them most and appropriately and safely under medical supervision.
Just on that point, Dr Mace, in my piece there, very keen that these should be brought into GP practice and very well monitored.
Yeah, and there are plans to do that in England. But before we do that, we need a service here in Northern Ireland operating so that patients can be adequately referred by us to the correct services to get not just the injection, but the whole holistic programme of looking at their diet, their exercise and their comorbidities that may be needed to look at these patients who are most in need. The problem we have is that there are some patients who are accessing these online and they actually aren't the people who are most in need.
Used properly, it seems to be, Alan, that they can be useful to some people in society. What's your take on them? And talk us through How much is obesity affecting our National Health Service?
Yes, hello, thank you. Well, certainly it's absolutely true. I must agree with both of my colleagues. They are very useful if appropriately used. The trial data and the outcome results are very clear that they can be very powerful in controlling weight, resolving diabetes, and the other medical conditions associated with obesity. However, the caveat really is that it needs to be in a proper package setting, as our GP colleague on the program has already mentioned. It's not just about the medications, it's about having access to the whole plethora and range of treatments available for obesity, which may also include surgery, dietetic advice, behavioral modifications, physiotherapy possibly, and a whole bunch of other things that come with it, not just a case of just taking the injections. Certainly, they are very cost effective overall in terms of from a healthcare economic perspective, because we know what the burden, the financial burden is to the healthcare. So when used appropriately,
you are a bariatric surgeon. I mean, ultimately,
yes.
Could these drugs put you out of business, and also as a result save the the health service billions of pounds?
Well, I think certainly there's some surgical colleagues who may have those fears, but I think they're unfounded for the following reasons. And I think this is why I think we should, all of us should stop thinking in terms of medical therapy versus surgical therapy. We need to really assess the patient from a holistic approach and say, we've got all these tools to deal with this condition, which is the most appropriate one. Not every patient can have GLP-1 medications like some of the drugs that have been mentioned, the weight loss injections. Equally, some people are not suitable for surgery and may benefit from this. The weight loss from the injections, as fantastic as they are, still isn't quite as much as that you would have with a bariatric surgery with a sleeve or bypass, but they are very useful. I think what we need to do really is not pit one against the other. I think there's room for all of these modalities. Just like heart surgery or heart treatment, for example, some people need a bypass, some people just need medication, some people need a stent.
What you seem to be suggesting is a blend. I'll come back to you shortly, but just to go back to yourself, Francis, someone watching tonight who is very overweight and feels they can't do anything much about it in a gym, or they can't change their eating habits, what would you say to them? Would you say try these drugs, or what would your advice be to those people?
My advice would be to discuss it with your GP in the first instance, because there are people who are not suitable for these drugs and there are some side effects. So it's important that you know what is suitable for you as a patient. If you are then going to get them, my advice is to get them from a reputable source. Yeah. And if possible, get them from somebody face to face where you're actually getting weighed and people can see that you do actually need them in the first place and your progress.
How frustrated are you as GPs that these drugs can't be prescribed through practices, the normal GP surgeries? And do you feel, as they can in some cases in England, and do you feel that we're lagging behind when it comes to treating obesity here?
Yes, we probably are lagging behind, but remember this is a very specialised area, and GPs, if we are to take it on, we would need training and we would also need time and funded so that we could actually take this on in the proper manner. At the minute, the only way to get them is to buy them, but we have concerns that not every patient who's buying them actually needs them or is suitable, and there are side effects that aren't always mentioned, and one of the common side effects is if in ladies who are of childbearing age, it can interfere with their contraception. So they need to speak to their GP and ensure that they're on adequate contraception before they would go on these.
And we'll be looking at some of those issues later in the programme. Alan, these are already rolling out through some GP practices in England, but just this week we've been hearing not that successfully.
I think there's a lot of variability. It's a bit of a postcode lottery, even in Ireland, and I don't just mean Northern Ireland versus England, etc., but even within England, there's a different uptake and different regions are starting at different times, and there's different healthcare policies, which I think needs to be standardized. Just to add one thing from the previous comment, if people are getting these, I completely agree with my colleague, it should be from reputable sources. Please do let your GP know. But equally, I think it's important to remember that this is not a passive process. It's not just a case of just taking injections and carrying on lifestyle as before. And that's why it's really important that the patient's behaviors and dietary and lifestyle habits are modified as well to help the medication.
Is there any, sorry to cut across you, but is there any evidence that people do change their habits, or do they simply rely on the drugs to do the work?
I think we simply don't know, because we don't really know how many people are using these. We know, even in England, we know from those patients who are getting it through GP or maybe from tertiary services like ours at Luton, but we don't really know how many people are getting them privately. So we have no way of surveying. And I think one of the concerns is that some people may not be benefiting from it because they haven't actually done all the other things that are required to get the most out of the medication.
Well, thank you for that, Alan. Francis, to yourself, I mean, what's your experience as a GP? I mean, we heard Dr. Mace in the package saying not a day goes by that somebody doesn't inquire about these drugs. What's your experience of it?
My experience is exactly the same. Donna works in the northwest of the province. I work in Armagh, and the experience is exactly the same. We have patients asking us, can they get it? And we also then come across patients who some of the online suppliers will let us know, but then we have to go through the patient's notes to see are they suitable or are they not. So that's a level of work as well. So we don't always get told, and that in itself can be dangerous. The patients really need to understand that the interactions with other medications and there's certain side effects they need to be aware of, and they need to discuss with somebody, not just buy it online.
Well, that's where we leave it for now. Francis and Alan, thank you both very much for joining us on Up Close. Now, coming up, Alison Fleming reports on the dangers of counterfeit medication, and I'll be joined by Professor Alex Myras, Clinical Professor of Medicine at Ulster University, and the nutritionist Julianne Dickinson. Back after this break. Welcome back to Up Close. Well, before the break, we heard from medical professionals about the potential benefits of weight loss injections, but there are also concerns. Firstly, around what happens when you want to come off the medication, the legislations around prescribing, and the dangers of counterfeit drugs. Here's Alison Fleming.
I started around 18.5 stone. And I got down to 2 pounds away from 3 stone, so I got down to like 15. I seen 15.8, 15.9, and that was the lowest I'd seen.
I've just been accepted for weight loss injections. I don't even know how to describe the feeling that I'm feeling right now. I have struggled with my weight my whole life.
35-year-old business owner Kirsty started using weight loss injections last year.
You've better self-esteem and more confidence, and you're going down in clothes sizes. I was able to fit into jeans and Duns for the first time in like 10 years. I was able to actually shop in high street stores. I've been getting my clothes online, plus size, and if you go for nice plus size clothes, you pay a hell of a lot of money for them. I was able to, it's little things, it's the compliments that people give you, and just that you're able to be normal. Like you're able to, I felt nearly like part of society again. Like I wasn't, when you're a bit bigger, you are kind of dismissed a little bit, and I felt like more people were nearly seeing me as a person.
A health condition meant she had to come off the medication.
I wouldn't have had a craving for anything. And it was maybe 4 to 6 weeks really, I noticed after that I started craving those like a Chinese, and then I was like, oh, I'd love a wee salt and chili chicken. And then I knew that the cravings were starting to come back. So I'm somewhere along the way, I must have ate more. I didn't think that I was, because I did gain some weight. I was off them for about 5 months. And I've sort of wavered between 7 to 10 pounds that I did put on. In the grand scheme of things, it's not loads, but it's enough to concern me that it's going back on.
After the all clear from her doctor, Kirsty resumed her treatment, but she faces the same dilemma again. She has Graves' disease, which is an autoimmune condition. The treatment, which involves a radioactive iodine, means she needs to stop using weight loss injections, and she's concerned about the impact.
I've struggled with my weight my whole adult life. I feel like I've always been on a diet, and this is the first thing that's made me feel normal. And I feel like it's really leveled the playing field for people that have struggled their whole lives with weight loss. And I never want to go back. I even said to my husband that, because when we had talked about coming off it, because I personally wouldn't want to be on a medication for life, we talked about coming off it, and he says, well, what happens when you start to put weight on? I says, well, hopefully they'll always be available and I'll just go back on them. I'm never going to let myself get to that weight and size again, but it might not be an option for me after I get the radioactive iodine, so I'm a bit scared.
For many people like Kirsty, weight loss injections have been a lifeline, but the cost can be expensive. Depending on your dosage, prices range from between £100 and £120 right up to over £200. But unscrupulous and unlicensed sellers are taking advantage of this by offering under-the-counter medication at greatly reduced prices, which is potentially fake and potentially life-threatening.
There's a beautician that I seen a poster up, and she was selling a vial of Manjaro for £40. And, you know, people need to understand that you do not get this in a vial here. It's sold in pen format. It's a prescription medication.
Mark McKee was told by a doctor he could be dead by the age of 40 because of his weight. But he says the injections have given him a second chance. He's been documenting his journey on social media, prompting many in the same situation to get in touch with him.
Follow along if you're on this journey and you want real practical tips from someone who's actually been through it.
I hear stories all the time about, you know, black market sales, illegal sellers. It happens to me. I get offers all the time from different people, you know, selling, you know, this prescription medication, you know, locally and online, and have a lot of friends, and I've heard different stories as well.
If someone is offering it via DMs, TikTok comments, or, you know, WhatsApp without proper consultations, then that is a huge red flag. So likewise, of little Sally on the corner shop, you know, that beautician, she will not be licensed to sell in 99.9% of cases. So be careful.
If you're seeking this out and you want to start it, I would definitely, if you're going to do it online, I would definitely check that the pharmacy that you choose to go with is registered with the General Pharmaceutical Council.
There's no way of knowing just how many people in Northern Ireland are using weight loss drugs. But for those who are, comes the risk of being duped into using fake medication. These are just some of the black market drugs seized during Operation Pangea. The haul, valued at over £1 million, included weight loss products destined for Northern Ireland. Health Minister Mike Nesbitt advised that drugs purchased from unregulated sites might not have been subject to the normal controls and may not be of a suitable quality or the nature described.
Alison Fleming reporting. Well, to discuss the issues raised in that report and more, I'm joined by Professor Alex Meares, Clinical Professor of Medicine at Ulster University, and the dietitian Julianne Dickinson. Julianne, to start with yourself, some people who are overweight say, you know, all I have to do is look at food and I'm piling on the pounds. What do you say to that?
I think, Niall, we have to go back to the beginning with this question and really look at what is obesity. So we're moving away from weight and we're moving towards health. So obesity is actually fat around the middle, around the internal organs that impairs health. And when this fat is associated with appetite, it's associated with metabolism. When this fat is increased, it sends this into dysregulation. And this is where the food noise comes in, that constant repetitive chat about food.
So you're seeing people, you've told me, you're seeing people who are already on the weight loss drugs, but also trying to change their lifestyle.
Yes.
Generally, how does that work for people?
So unfortunately, these drugs are not a standalone option. You can't get away from nutrition and exercise. Generally, people have been in a negative cycle, and these drugs are turning that into a positive cycle. It also helps to change taste, so people are enjoying more fruit and vegetables, and because of the side effects, they're cutting down on the high fat and the high sugar foods.
And generally, are people being successful, would you say?
Definitely there is more success. I think it's really important to manage expectations. So some people will lose 10%, some people will lose 20%, others are non-responders. So it's really important at the beginning to say that it's not a magic wand. There are some nutritional requirements that you have to stick to. There is follow-ups and make people aware of what they're getting into to make an informed choice.
Indeed. Okay, Alex, to yourself, I mean, you work in this field day and daily. What do you make of these so-called weight loss jabs?
So I will carry on from what Juliana was saying to say that 70% of our body weight is determined by our genetic predisposition, and that affects parts of the brain that control our appetite. So the reason why these medications work is because they address the biology of the disease of obesity. And it is not so much whether my opinion is positive or negative. We now know from clinical or research studies that these medications can be very effective, not only for weight loss, but more importantly for making people healthier and more functional. And this reduces the cost of their disease to the National Health Service.
You mentioned genetics are a big part of this, as much as 70%. I mean, for many people who are overweight, you know, they will feel guilt at times, but you're now saying that it's possible they don't have the makeup to control how and when they put on weight?
That is very much correct. It doesn't mean that environmental influences are not there, but it means that when someone has got a predisposition to have high levels of hunger and low levels of fullness because of a dysregulation of a certain part of the brain, to me that says that they have a disease, and there is no reason to feel guilty for this, in the same way that someone who has got high blood pressure or high cholesterol should not be feeling guilty for that disease.
So would you recommend then that people do try these drugs if they're in a position where they feel they can't do anything?
So if they have, absolutely right. So if they have got obesity together with its complications, we know from very good evidence that these medications can potentially help them to make them more healthy and more functional.
That's very interesting what Alex is saying there. Some people just, it's how they're built.
Yes, Niall, and actually this simplifying obesity as calories in and calories out has done nothing but harm. It's created a real culture of shame and blame, and this culture of shame and blame has actually led to anxiety, depression, people avoiding healthcare professionals, and weight gain and poor health, and which is what we're trying to avoid.
Even now some people are trying to shame people who are taking these drugs to try and better themselves.
And we now know obesity is a chronic, relapsing and progressive disease in its own right.
You mentioned the food noise earlier, Julianne.
Yeah.
How do people switch that off, or can they switch it off? Because some people have told us they would be very concerned that when they stop taking the drugs, the food noise would return?
Well, because obesity is seen as a chronic disease, these medications should be taken long term. So these medications are not skinny jabs, they're not weight loss jabs, they're anti-obesity medications. So they're for the disease of obesity. If you are looking to drop a dress size for a wedding, then these are not for you.
What would you say, Alex, to people who would be concerned about the food noise and the return of it? What would you advise?
So the reason why the food noise is not going to return either with medications or with surgery, which is what you discussed previously, is because these treatments have a biological effect on the parts of the brain that cause the disease. Therefore, if the treatment is effective, the food noise should stay under control.
But does that mean that if you go on the drugs, you probably need to stay on them for life?
That's right. And again, I go back to the example of high blood pressure. We would never stop an antihypertensive, a blood pressure medication, ever in someone who has got the disease of hypertension. So we wouldn't do the same for obesity.
Yeah, and is there any indication at this stage that long-term use like that can have very adverse side effects?
No, then the reason we know that is because we have been using this family of medications for the last 18 years, but that has been to treat diabetes. Now we're just using them in a different population of patients. And we know from our experience over the last 18 years that the benefits are certainly there, and there might be some initial side effects, but overall these medications for most people are very, very safe.
It seems to me as well, Julianne, that these medicines, yes, they can improve people physically, but would your patients say they improve mentally as well?
Definitely. I think they've spent their whole life looking at their weight and being in a negative cycle, and suddenly they are turning that into a positive cycle. I would encourage them not just to look at weight, because we're moving away from weight, we're moving to health, we're moving to reducing disease, improving quality of life. So to look at wins, how you stand up from sitting, how you move, how you breathe, have you reduced your medication, how your clothes feel. So lots of other non-weight related wins.
Alex, very briefly, could similar type drugs be harnessed for people addicted to tobacco, alcohol, that kind of thing?
They're being researched into these types of addictions. The reason being is that those parts of the brain that control the pleasure that we get from food also control the pleasure that we get from tobacco or alcohol, and these medications can lower that pleasure. So this is a very interesting field of research.
Very much one to watch. Alex, Julianne, thank you both for coming on Up Close this evening. And after the break, I'll be joined by members of Stormont's Health Committee, and we'll be examining the perceived stigma around using weight loss injections with Tina Calder and Kathy Martin. Do stay with us. Welcome back to Up Close. Joining me are the Chair of the Health Committee at Stormont, Philip McGuigan from Sinn Féin, and the Deputy Chair, Danny Donnelly from Alliance. You're both very welcome. Philip, first to yourself. This obesity costing us a huge amount of money here in Northern Ireland.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously costing a huge amount of money, and it's obviously also having a severe impact on the health of our population. I mean, the statistics of people in the north who are overweight are 67%. No, that's a staggering statistic. And also for the number of children who are overweight is also a very worrying statistic. So it's something that, from a health perspective, we need to get to grips with. We need to take action.
What do you think, Philip, needs to happen?
Well, I mean, the Minister has announced a regional obesity management strategy that's to take place and begin in early 2026. So we welcome that announcement. I think it's important that whatever decisions are taken and whichever the management of obesity services are, they're co-designed, that we certainly need a whole systems approach. This is an issue that impacts that is going to require education, it's going to require a health a problem too, and it also need to be important and part of the anti-poverty strategy, because the statistics show that the vast majority of those people who are obese, 67% I think it is as well, come from the working class.
What you seem to be saying is a cross-departmental approach.
Absolutely, a whole system approach is needed.
In the executive. Would you agree, Danny?
Yes, absolutely. Now, I think this is very early days for these particular types of medications. I do think that there are huge health benefits here to be had, and a lot of people in our population will benefit from that. Reduced levels of stroke and heart attacks and other serious medical complications that people could suffer.
Locally though, do you think it's too little too late what the executive is doing? Could we be doing much more?
Well, we have heard that there is going to be a regional obesity service starting in 2026, so waiting to see how that rolls out. We haven't heard any more details about how that's going to be structured, how that's going to be run, and certainly as a health committee, I know we're looking forward to hearing those details and finding out how that is going to be delivered across Northern Ireland.
This obesity service announced by the Health Minister, Mike Nesbitt, it begins next year. It's good, it's to be welcomed by many people, I'm sure, but he even says, moving to phase 2, 3, 4 and spreading it out across the country, all dependent on funding.
Yes, well, we all know budgets are tight, and certainly that's something that has been characterised right across all the departments, not just health. The Health Minister does have a budget to improve people's health here in Northern Ireland, so we're hoping that's something that he will be able to fund.
We've already seen it roll out to some degree in England through GP surgeries, these drugs, Philip. Are you frustrated that we don't seem to be able to, match that kind of action?
Well, absolutely. I mean, we certainly need to see movement. You've pointed to the cost implications. I mean, obesity is costing, overweight is costing our health services up to 500 million a year. So we do need to invest money to reduce that cost, but also to improve the healthy nature of our population, because obesity is in itself an issue, but it's also impacting citizens with type 2 diabetes, with heart problems, with strokes, and with other mental health issues, which are further costing and impacting on our health service. So we do need to invest in services. I would like to see community-based services that can help our population within the community. I say it's particularly important that whatever services we see in the north are spread right across the north, are geographically spread, and that focus on those vulnerable communities where this is a particular cause for concern.
And there's also concern, Danny Donnelly, around people obtaining these medicines illegally online. What they get might be not what they're being promised. Your party has the justice portfolio at Stormont. Is enough being done to kind of stop bad stuff coming into Northern Ireland?
I've been very concerned talking to people about this, about hearing the apparent ease of access to this, and I think there are certain things that do need to be done to tighten up regulation around this. I've heard that people are able to access this by filling in an online form, and on the basis of that, then this drug is being delivered to them for use. I have heard anecdotal stories of people maybe not being very truthful with their online application and still being able to access the drug.
So do you think it's time to roll it out across GP surgeries, and could that happen soon?
I think we need to design a service, and I think there needs to be regulation in the service. I think there needs to be independent verification of the details that people are giving. I think there needs to be a bit of a tightening up where possibly we're seeing a bit more of a face-to-face consultation before somebody receives this, that we know that people who do need it and who do meet all the criteria are able to get it, but people who don't need it...
What you're describing there, Danny, might take a long time to put all of that in place.
But it's about using drugs safely. We don't want these drugs to be abused. I've heard anecdotal stories of people who definitely do not need it, and in fact it may harm them, being able to acquire these drugs. So that is very, very concerning. They are powerful drugs. There is potential side effects. We know there are potential side effects, and we've heard from doctors that have treated patients who are normal body weight, but have had these drugs, acquired these drugs, and had dangerous side effects associated with them.
Now, we know we have many health problems in Northern Ireland, so many of them, Philip. But in terms of this issue, would you be content enough that this strategy that's due to be rolled out next year could start to make some degree of good results in terms of where we are with obesity?
Well, I welcome the strategy, but we do need to see more detail in terms of what the Minister is thinking, how the strategy is going to work, where it's going to impact, and how it's going to be funded. So we do need to see more detail, but it is certainly an issue that does need to be addressed by the Health Minister. I think GPs will play an important role in that. I mean,
up until now, do you think it has been taken seriously enough?
Well, I mean, whatever we've been doing hasn't been working because the figures continue to grow. So, I mean, it is certainly a cause for concern for me as Chair of the Health Committee that this issue needs addressed. As I say, the strategy is the first step on that ladder, but we do need to see more action from the department, more action from the Minister, because we can't allow the percentages and the figures to increase upwards. We need to tackle this issue because, as I say, it is having a serious financial impact on our health service, on the health budget, but more importantly, it's having a serious physical and mental health issue on our population. So, as I say, whole system approach. We need to redesign how we look at food, how we look at physical activity, how we look at anti-poverty, and how we look at treatment. I agree with Danny that these drugs need to be used in conjunction with medical practitioners.
Need to stop you there, Philip. Final answer from yourself. Can we do this and do it successfully if the monies are in place?
I would hope that that's the case. There are a lot of pressures right across our health system. We have heard today about several other stories about our health system in relation to workforce and in relation to workload upon the health service staff. I would hope that this is a possibility. I know it could have positive benefits to a lot of our population.
Danny Donnelly and Philip McGuigan, thank you both for joining us tonight on Up Close. Well, a short time ago I spoke to the influencer Kathy Martin and commentator and publicist Tina Calder, who has lost 10 stone on the injections. Tina, what was it that made you go on weight loss drugs in the first place?
I think after 25 years of it sort of creeping on slowly, and having done everything that you can think of, all of the different diet plans and the don't eat after 6 and only eat soup and all of these kinds of things. I'd hit the perimenopause. I had got to the stage in life where I was quite big and I was desperate, if I'm going to be truly, truly honest. And I made a call to somebody that I knew and I said, I don't have anything, this is my last resort, because I had even gone so far as to buy a shed and gym equipment and put it on Facebook and try and get accountability. I had tried everything and nothing was working.
You're still on the drugs. Have they turned out to be the silver bullet for you?
Absolutely, and I am one of the lucky ones, very minimal side effects. I started seeing the weight coming off quite slowly at the beginning, and then there is a point at which it becomes really noticeable, but I was always open about the journey anyway.
How long in total?
So January 2024, I started them around the end of January, and to date I've lost somewhere between 9.5 to 10 stone.
And you're still on it. Have you any concerns about coming off briefly?
Absolutely, because within a couple of weeks of starting to take the medication, inflammation that I struggled with my entire adult life disappeared, and I don't overstate that. I found myself more mobile, I found myself with more energy, I found that I was just more active generally, and I hadn't lost any weight at this point. So I know that there's something else that's going on here. I just don't know what that is, and I've taken a few breaks along the way, and each time the inflammation has come back and stuff like that.
Obviously something to consider. Kathy Martin, from your perspective, I'm sure you've spoken to a lot of people who are on these drugs, but for many they will feel a stigma around being on them. Why do you think that is?
Look, I just think, well, women's bodies in particular are always a subject of shame. You know, we're told to love the body we're in and all of these kind of modern day things, but modern day mantras, but actually, you know, our bodies are definitely objectified a little bit more. Men too. And we have, I thought, got to a point in media, particularly with the social media, democratising and allowing everybody of every shape and size to be platformed and to be viewed online. I thought we'd got to a point where we were really inclusive about lots of different body shapes and sizes. But then again, I think with, not just with the arrival of weight loss injections, but you know, we're still there, we're still objectifying people's bodies. And I just think that yes, there is a stigma out there for some who use words like cheating, if you choose to.
Would you consider it to be a cheat, or how do you view it?
No, I'm all for people making their own decisions, and I wouldn't judge anybody's decision about what they do, be it for an aesthetic, vanity reason, or be it for a medical reason. And let's face it, even if you choose to use these injections for vanity or aesthetic reasons, there are always lots of other medical benefits too. You know, Tina's shared her story there. I've just heard so many stories about people who were carrying weight all over their body, but they also had maybe a dicky knee or something else going on. And then with, I guess it's maybe the insulin glucose axis there or something, the inflammation has gone and other health issues have almost dissipated.
Tina, can I ask you, did you in the early days, or have you told people you're taking it, what was their reaction, and did you ever get accused of cheating?
I wouldn't say it was cheating as such, but there were people who made it very clear that they felt if you weren't going to struggle to lose the weight, then there was something not very genuine or authentic about it.
Were you happy to tell people that you were on it though?
I told everybody from the very beginning. Anyone that knows me knows it's going to come out of my mouth anyway. I can't help it.
And I suppose it becomes apparent after a while that you're doing something quite radical.
Absolutely. And I think, as I said, there's a point at which it becomes really obvious, and I think that's really where you can't wear the clothes anymore because they're literally falling off you, and there is a point at which you change even how you wear clothes and how you carry yourself because your body shape is changed. I remember being shocked because I didn't knock something over on a table when I was walking past it.
Tell me this, has it changed? It's obviously changed you physically. What about mentally?
Mentally, it has been a massive, massive difference for me. I didn't realise just how impacted my levels of confidence were with the weight. my whole career, I was just really good at faking it. And I think I'd even believed it myself until such times as I started actually enjoying buying clothes, enjoying expressing my own personal style again. Whereas previously, I used those things as I suppose, the thing to distract rather than the thing to make me feel more in tune with myself.
Well, we're told, Kathy, around 1 million people or more across the UK are on these kinds of drugs. It sounds like that it's here to stay?
Absolutely. I think this is I think we're now at a place where we were with Botox, say about 15, maybe 20 years ago. When Botox first came in, there was a lot of damnation about it and how this was terrible and all the rest. And now everyone's on it, or everyone's using Botox. Or not everyone, but again, the numbers are massive. It's widespread, it's accepted. You can get it on most high streets in most towns and villages. I think this is going to be the case with weight loss injections as well. You know, let's not forget, these have been around for almost 20 years. They have been tested. It's nothing brand new, albeit that they've been tested and used on diabetics originally. You know, we in general have concerns about side effects. Tina hasn't had any, she said. You know, I think the main thing if you're going to go on them is to make sure that you maintain your muscle mass with the exercise and you actually eat healthily. So you're not just eating less of ultra-processed foods, you try and eat a little bit healthy and think nutrition first.
Great stuff. Kathy Martin and Tina, thank you both very much for joining us tonight in the studio. And that is it from this edition of Up Close. Thanks to all of our contributors this evening. From all of us on the programme, thanks to you for watching. Good night and sleep well.